Coming to you live from a sleepy Midwestern town where nothing ever happens. It's this week's Apocalypse. I am probably your co-host, Kevin Lenihan. With me, as always, is someone who definitely looks a lot like John Ferris. John, how and who are you today?
I think I'm me.
Yeah. Are you, though?
Are you?
I don't know. There was a man running around in the streets earlier on screaming that they're here already, they look just like us. And then, I don't know what happened to him, but probably something nice. I'm sure he's having a great time wherever he is. But it kind of got me a bit worried, so I started doing research by looking on the internet. And I found a couple of websites about...
The heavily implied inverted commas there.
Indeed. Heavily implied by my mode of speech.
Yes.
Yes. So I started looking into some... what people call conspiracy websites, but I don't know about you, but I'm convinced.
Yeah.
John.
Well, they that's why they call them that, because they want you to think that it's a conspiracy.
Yeah, that's why they make all those movies and those shows like the X-Files.
Yeah, exactly.
To make you think, oh, this is just happens in science fiction.
Exactly.
Yeah, but what about science faction? Hey, what about that thing? That's definitely a thing. The science faction. Oh,
yep, the science faction.
Terrible. Yeah, so I don't know if... I'm pretty sure I'm not a replacement person from beyond the stars.
Yeah.
But there again, would I know if I was? And would I know if you were? And would you know if you was?
We need a proper way to fully find out, as you say, how to tell if either of us are who we say we are.
Indeed. Are we using the term pod people, or is that not cool?
Yeah, that's been all right since like the 50s.
Oh yeah, so every term that was used in the 50s is definitely fine. So yeah.
Oh,
okay.
That's messy actually.
Indeed. Right. Well, I'm going to stick with pod people then. So, as far as determining whether or not you or I or the people around us are pod people,
yeah.
I have compiled a list recommended by my conspiracy buddies online as scientifically valid sort of a guide, if you will, to determining whether or not people are in fact who they say they are. Ah. So they've given me a couple of, once again, we're into the realm of laser discs here.
Hey, nice.
Yeah, I got a laser disc player and a whole bunch of laser discs, my LP-sized CDs, those, if you've ever seen them around. So, first of all, we have Harry Bromley Davenport's XTRO from 1982. Then we have Philip Kaufman's Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1978, the first remake of the 1950s movie. And then we also have from Robert Rodriguez, we have The Faculty from 1998. I don't know about you, but my levels of distress and paranoia are going through the roof here, so I think we need to get these watched right now. Okay, cool. Well, I think let's start off with what is probably the most informative, must be the most informative of all of these films. It's pretty obviously the most obviously titled XTRO. Yeah. So, John, what did you think of, and why is it called XTRO?
XTRO seems to just be the name of the creature.
Is it?
I don't know.
Say it.
I actually didn't really give it much thought beyond that.
I only just thought of it about 5 minutes ago. It's.
I mean, there's so many other pressing questions as far as this movie goes that why it's called XTRO doesn't really factor in much.
Okay, so you're saying that's the least of our worries? Really?
Oh, big time.
Okay, fair enough.
I would like to know where the panther and the clown guy came from.
Yeah, they get away with a lot of stuff by leaning on...
Do they get away with it though?
Say they get away with they shunt aside the logic on a lot of stuff by basically saying the imagination of the child is like it.
Yeah.
So basically, XTRO. Can you explain to me, John, what XTRO is about?
Well, kind of briefly, at the start of XTRO, there is a father playing with his son, and then a load of lights happen and a load of special effects that kind of the special effects look like. Did you ever see the old 80s version of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
Yeah, the one where like yes, I know exactly the one.
It's
you're talking about. Yeah.
It's kind of like that. And I mean, this movie is out in the 80s, so like you kind of forgive it the bad special effects, and sometimes the bad special effects actually work in its favor.
Yeah.
But the music is unforgivable. It's kind of almost like a LucasArts game from that time.
It's very MIDI sounding,
yeah,
isn't it?
it's very MIDI and it's very repetitive. But anyway, so this is all playing. It's all this light appears, and then there's like a strong wind, and the dad. The dad obviously gets abducted or something by something. Something of an alien-like nature. And then 3 years later, somehow the child does not age for 3 years, but that's kind of just glossed over.
The kid looks exactly the same. That's true.
Yeah. So beyond that weirdness, the dad, a creature lands kind of near where the dad was abducted, and it impregnates a woman in a weird way, very strange scene. Yeah. And then she gives birth to
a fully grown adult male.
Yeah, who looks exactly like this father who was abducted, and then the rest is all madness. The rest is all he's basically down. His goal is to take his son to wherever he went.
For some reason.
Yeah.
Why does he need this kid?
I don't know.
Why is this kid important?
But that's the basic run through of it. The rest is all absolute madness. It kind of has elements that could have worked very well. Like when he returns, the mum's kind of moved on. She's got like a new guy, but they don't even play on that like too much that you feel awkward for all the characters, but it's not really dealt with in any way.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's just this weird sort of like they want to have this tension. Yeah. Like a family tension whenever he like, I've been away, and like they play it off as like, oh, the father, he just left the family.
Yeah.
That's what they think. He just up sticks and left them one day, and then the kid imagined or like trying to excuse it by saying, oh no, he was taken away by the lights in the sky that took my father. And they're all like, oh, quit mucking around, he just left us.
Yeah.
So she's like remarried now. It seems that they all know each other as well, though. It seems like because the guy, the American stepdad knows the guy.
Yeah.
When he comes back, they talk as if they know each other and remember each other from before. So that's got this whole element of I married my mate's wife thing, which is, oh no, well, they're not married. He off the cuff at dinner to like make some kind of point tells him, oh well, we're getting married, which seems to be a surprise to her as well.
Oh yeah, that's the same dinner party where like the father throws the wine bottle at this guy randomly, and
he just fucks it at him.
Yeah, it's like, what the fuck's going on? It's very strange. It's the acting in it's not great either, and
no,
it's one of those. I would say the kind of first kind of third of this movie is entertaining in that kind of schlocky kind of almost video nasty way, where these kind of like thrown together special effects that are, it's kind of admirable that they're clearly on a shoestring budget and they're trying to make it look as grotesque or as alien as possible, and sometimes it actually looks pretty good.
I think sometimes it looks cool. Whether or not you think it looks good,
Well,
or not,
yeah, I suppose
the part where the man is birthed.
Yeah,
I thoroughly enjoyed that.
Yeah.
It was nasty and kind of crappy.
Yeah.
But in a way I really appreciated.
Yeah.
So I like that. There's some cool stuff conceptually later with they have this French woman that just seems to live with them. Yeah, and I'm not really sure who she is. Is she like the live-in babysitter or something for them?
The son does get asked by the father at one point, and his reply is basically everything you need to know about this character, which is she helps mum, she's French.
She helps mum, she's French.
That is all we need to know about Annalise.
Annalise, indeed. And
actually, there's a really funny part where she's on the phone to the mother, and she goes, "Do we need any food? How much?
How much food do we need? Yes,
6 food, please."
So what you're saying, John, is that maybe she is an alien?
She
perhaps.
She has a very kind of horrible, sticky end.
She does. That's what I would. That's sort of what I was meditating on there. Whenever it comes to like conceptually what happens to her, and also the physical effect actually is one that again I think is a cool one.
Oh yeah.
Where she basically becomes like some kind of weird egg laying sort of thing.
Yeah, like a gerbil feeder.
Yeah, that just dispenses eggs.
Only slimier and kind of more organic.
Yeah, so stuff like that is cool. That effect there is great.
Yeah.
As far as like consistency and tone and the story goes, is as you say is all over the place.
Yeah.
And as soon as they introduce the element of the father, like he like deposits something in the kid's shoulder when they're alone, and then suddenly
weird,
which is strange with his mouth, and then it's very odd, and then he's just like tells the kid basically, if you believe in something hard enough, or whatever you imagine, you can make real.
Yeah.
And at that point, that's when it really gets off the rails as far as, like, it seemed like it was the director was just talking to the special effects people and was like, what have you got lying around, or what weird thing would you like to do in a movie?
Well, I did watch the you can get it on YouTube. It's like a wee 16-minute kind of interview with Harry Bromley Davenport, who is the director, and it's called Expo Exposed, and he does not have great things to say about working on this movie, and in fact, at one point he goes, "There's no logic to it at all. It's utter rubbish." What else does he say?
Let's give us some more quality, Mr. Davenport quotes, please.
Everything about this movie is pretty awful. Like, dude, he's kind of he seems to be quite upfront about how they just did anything and everything. The producers would come in and just kind of, one of them would say, "Oh, I kind of think we should put a clown into it," and
what?
Yeah, and Davenport would go,
why...
"Yeah, fuck it, why not?" So like, this is why a lot of, it's this really weird tone throughout, and there's these really weird things. Like one of the producers, Robert Shea, he really wanted the Black Panther put in it for some unknown reason.
Did he have one and he wanted to use it? Well,
according to this, like according to Harry Bromley Davenport, it was just like he got so fixated on this one thing that he couldn't let it go. So he just so they had to put this Black Panther in, which is just bizarre.
It's bonkers. That is bonkers.
It just seems like they didn't say no to anything. And I mean, you know, it could be a wee thing of like maybe people were on some mind-altering chemicals and just rolled with it. Who knows? But yeah, and I mean, he said as far as the effects went, they were trying to make it as disgusting as possible. Like they were, and it would have been worse if Davenport had his way.
No, wow.
So yeah.
I almost would rather see that maybe.
Yeah,
than
like
clowns and panthers.
So it does seem like the producers were kind of just coming in randomly and going, yeah, stick this in. Like the kid's random pet snake was another thing that seemed to be just added in on a whim. And it feels like that when you're watching it. It feels like stuff is just happening. There's no there's no context to it. There's no deeper meaning to it. It's not like they're trying to represent anything. It is literally just this shit's just there.
Yeah, like the clown guy doesn't seem to be a metaphor for anything.
No.
Or an actual, like, I mean, they infer that he is a projection of the kid's imagination from a little toy that he has.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem to really mean anything, much in the same way that, again, as you say, the panther doesn't really seem to mean anything. It's just sort of there. And then they have a toy tank chasing the French girl's weird boyfriend around the flat.
And even that's
shots at
very
him.
strange. Like it almost seems like the French girl who she went on to be in one of the Bond movies. She was like a Bond girl, I think. Mariam Diabo apparently is her name.
Okay.
I don't really know her from anything else, but I remember checking it out, and she was like a Bond girl, and I think one of the what do you call him? Just before
George Lazenby, you talking about? Or are you talking about there's Sean Connery, there's Roger Moore. Would you like me to go through all of the
Yes,
Bonds?
yeah, because you're almost there. It's the one that
Timothy Dalton?
Timothy Dalton, that's the one.
My favourite James Bond. He's only in 2 Bond movies, but I think he's the best Bond. Yes.
Yes. Is he? Yes, because he's in. It's The Living Daylights. That's the one.
He's in The Living Daylights and License to Kill. Those are the 2 that he was in.
That's the movie that she's in, is The Living Daylights.
Okay, right.
She really only seems to be an extra to kind of strip and be naked.
She walks around naked a few times, and then becomes a weird womb for eggs.
Which is kind of possibly the worst fate out of everyone.
The things that happen to people. I don't know. Maybe. Because the woman who gives birth to the adult male, the man at the beginning, is pretty rough. Like, that's pretty bad. But yeah, becoming a weird egg-laying sack is pretty rough too.
Because I'm guessing that she's still alive through this whole thing. She just can't.
Yeah, you'd imagine so.
Yeah.
And then there's the weird old German woman. I think she's German, that lives downstairs.
Oh yes, yeah.
From them.
The busybody woman who...
Yeah, the busybody woman who, much to her detriment, just can't resist sweets. That's what I remember. So, her end, the way she dies is so baffling to me. Because, so she murders the kid's snake because it comes down through a light fitting.
Yeah.
And she just takes a fucking meat tenderizer to it or something and bashes it into goo.
That's right.
And then he's pissed off at her, so then he makes his off-brand action man into man size, and it walks around like a robot guy.
And it's kind of it's all right. It's kind of creepy.
The way it moves is actually kind of fun. It's doing like the RoboCop walk, you know.
Yeah.
It's kind of a convincing sort of thing, to the point where whenever you look at the cast for the movie, there is a cast for the monster, at the beginning is played by Tick, T-I-C, Tick, and that soldier toy is played by Tok.
Oh yes, I remember seeing this actually, and
yeah, which I was just like, does that mean it was a fully built thing that was?
I think they're mime artists, and this is probably their stage names or what?
Tick and Tok, yeah, maybe. But the way she dies is so stupid. So it comes to the door with bolt cutters, apparently, that you don't see until like she opens the door a bit and she's like, oh no, and like you see the bolt cutters come through and snip the chain on the door, and then she freaks out and runs, and then big action man with a rifle with a rapier on it is walking around trying to find her, and she's hiding, and then it knocks over the coffee table and some chocolates fall on the ground.
Yep.
And then even though she's hiding from this thing that's walking around her house and trying to stab her with a rapier, she's like, oh, chocolates! And you just see her hand creeping out from under the sofa to grab some chocolates while she's hiding, fearing for her life.
You gotta admire that level of obsession.
Yeah, and then he's like, all right, well, there she is then. Stab. And that's the end of her.
Yeah, I mean, XTRO is one of these movies that, you know, very much in the same line as the kind of things that were featured in Mystery Science Theater. Like you can enjoy this. It's never really it does have moments where it is actually boring, but usually something mental then happens and you kind of get over it, or it's something completely incomprehensible and baffling. And again, we've came across movies like this before. If you have the right mindset and the right group of friends, you will have a ball of a time watching this absolutely ridiculous
Now, are we calling the creature XTRO? Are we calling him XTRO?
I mean, what
else? No
one
ever says XTRO in the movie.
No. I mean, I'm assuming he is XTRO.
You assume he is.
What else? Because XTRO is not a word.
Because I was about to say XTRO doesn't really do very well blending in as a body snatcher. No, but then I realized I was calling him XTRO, and I was like, is he XTRO? Is that what he is? But he's bad at blending in.
He's worthless.
The kid immediately becomes bad at blending in as soon as he's part of the conspiracy and becomes one of them. So it doesn't do well. And then he starts
note
to
self, if you ever or note to alien self, do not eat snake eggs in front of people.
Yeah, don't eat snake eggs full stop if you can avoid it. Like,
well, sometimes you need it, but try and do it without getting spotted.
Yeah, you got to get yours at some point, I suppose. But yeah. Well, he does do it in the dark. You got to
your weird shit if you're XTRO, like.
If your name is XTRO, if your name's probably XTRO, then you got to get your weird on somehow. But yeah, ultimately, I think this film, I enjoyed watching this film, but it was
for all the wrong reasons.
What? For the wrong reasons?
Yeah, for all the wrong reasons.
Yes, for all the wrong reasons. It was a baffling train wreck that sometimes had really interesting special effects happening here and there, and some amusing performances.
Yes.
If not great.
I mean, and I think that's where the movie actually falls down, is that if they just stuck to the kind of this monster coming to grab a kid or do whatever, it would have worked. But then once they start getting into like the kid having these XTRO powers or whatever they are, that's the part of the movie that it just becomes ridiculous and almost boring. Like the extended clown scene in his bedroom is
or he's like spinning the wee thing, and it's got the yo-yo with the blades on it and all that crap. Yeah, it was really pointless. It feels like that stuff, from what you're saying about this producer wanting to get this panther into the movie, and like, I wonder if, like, I assume none of this was in the original. From the sounds of it, the script was probably actually that original straightforward idea.
Oh yeah,
and then it just got corrupted by all this nonsense of, I want a panther and I want a clown, please. And it's like, well, how do we work?
Can we have the clown like jump on someone in the lift? Have you put the panther in yet? Have you put the panther in?
Is the panther in yet? I've been asking you for 3 weeks to put a panther in this thing. Okay. Yeah. So as far as narrative goes, it gets completely derailed by all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then the end happens and it feels disconnected from all that crap completely. And I actually really liked the final effect. Not the final effect, but when he is sort of the body snatcher XTRO himself is sort of rotting and desiccating and becoming this weird bone clawed creature.
Yeah.
I actually thought that looked pretty good and kind of cool.
It did.
And then the kid next to him, the last shot of the kid looking like a really messed up, like almost looks like a zombie or a walking corpse or something.
Yeah.
It looked pretty good. And then it all gets kind of deflated.
With a hint of the fly, the Jeff Goldblum one. Like,
Yeah.
He's kind of looking, as you say, like a zombie kind of weird mutant creature.
Yeah, like desiccated as well,
Yeah.
like drying out, which is kind of cool. But then it all gets kind of like, so whenever that was happening, I was like, this is kind of good now. I kind of like what's happening right now. And then apparently it was supposed to end there initially. Well, what happened was apparently they had a scene initially where then the mother, played by Bernice Steigers, who has actually been in a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
And is like a legitimate actress these days. She was in a lot of BBC stuff over the years because I recognized her.
Yeah.
Initially, I was like, I know her. Who's she? And then I thought for a brief moment, oh, that's like the main lead from Hellraiser.
Oh,
The woman, but it's not her. She looks a lot like her.
Yeah.
She sounds like her when she speaks, and she's got the same kind of accent.
Yeah.
The sort of South England kind of mode of speech, but it's not her. But she's been in. The reason I got her confused is she's been in a bunch of stuff on TV as I was growing up.
Yeah.
So I recognized her from that, and in like a bunch of newer movies. Anyway, so initially she was supposed to go back to the flat and find a bunch of copies of the kid running around the place.
Yeah.
And then apparently that looked according to what the producers decided, that looked really bad. Now this is probably the same producers that wanted a panther in the movie and a clown.
I mean, you can watch the alternate ending on YouTube as well, if you're so inclined.
Okay. Well, that one
in particular, yeah.
Right. I didn't go out of my way to watch the actual ending. I just sort of heard the opinions. This as sort of a story, as it were. So part of what happened was they were like, no, don't like that. So then they cut it. Whenever it was originally released, they basically cut it there when the father and the son walk off into the light of the, I guess, spaceship.
Yeah.
If we want to think of it as a spaceship, it's not really established, but we imagine it's from space.
Yeah.
I don't know if they say it is.
I mean,
but
even the fact that this movie was kind of a large part of the criticism that was put on this was it was trying to capitalize on the success of E.T. And even some of the taglines were like not. There was one that was like, "Not all aliens are friendly" or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that was directly evoking E.T. Yeah.
So
I
think we can safely say that XTRO is an alien, whatever XTRO is.
Whatever whoever XTRO is in the film, I don't know. It's probably that guy. So what happened after they saw that ending was they were like, no, let's just cut that. So they literally just cut it out.
Yeah.
So the movie ended basically with them going into the light, going away, and then the mum just sort of sitting down in the field, and then cut to credits.
Yeah.
And then Mr. Davenport, the director, was raging because he was like, that's a crap ending. That's so abrupt. So then he shot another ending for when it would be released on VHS, I think, which is the one I saw, and I think maybe is the one, this may be like the official version of XTRO.
Oh yeah, so
now.
this is Davenport's vision.
Indeed, this is the director's. Well, this is the director's corrupted by possibly the producer's vision, where she goes and then she goes back to the flat, and it's really weird. And I imagine because it was shot after, maybe they didn't have access to the sets or the places they shot anymore. Because she goes back to the flat supposedly, but it's all white.
Yeah,
it's just pure white room, and like. There's a whole thing where they're filling the fridge on the floor with the eggs that are being deposited by the French girl in the bathroom. It's a really weird sentence. It's a really weird sentence for me to have had to say in my life, but I've said it now. So they got this. It's essentially like a weird egg bath with all these things, and then he decided this was a better ending, so he picks up the egg and then just fondles it for an extended length of time in what looks like she's not even dressed the same. She looks like she's wearing like a funeral suit or something.
Yeah.
And then it explodes and jumps on her, and it's just like, oh, it's doing the facehugger from Alien, and then the movie ends.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know if that was better, but it was certainly something.
And the worst part is that I haven't seen. There are sequels to this. There's XTRO 2 and 3.
Yes.
And
Unconnected,
apparently, if it can be believed, XTRO 2 is worse than XTRO.
Really?
Which almost makes me want to see it. But they're nothing at all to do.
Yeah.
The first one, like, they're completely divorced from even the idea of, if you could say there is a coherent idea in this movie.
I mean, there are specific characters with names in it, and if they don't carry over, I guess that counts as, like, you know, this has nothing to do with it, and if it's also not about the same subject.
Apparently, I can't remember which one it is, but like 2 or 3 is more like Predator in a sense that it's like, you know, this alien picking people off. Like, it doesn't have these like weird powers that XTRO seems to show or like pass on to his son. But yeah, it just seems like each one kind of is ripping off a different successful alien, and I don't mean like alien as in the xenomorph alien, Sigourney Weaver aliens, like a different franchise each time. So this one's
Well,
E.T.
I mean, this one kind of is ripping off the Sigourney Weaver alien at times, with like the facehugger-esque sort of stuff, like the woman at the beginning who becomes impregnated.
Yeah,
that's a very sort of, we planted an alien in you through your mouth.
And even Annalise, the cocoon that she ends up in, you know, that's big in Aliens as well. People in the cocoons just waiting to get their chest bursted.
It's not. Yeah, this movie's a goddamn it's just all over the place and confusing, and I guess an excuse for producers to demand weird things from special effects departments and directors. That's XTRO, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, well, my lips are starting to feel a little chapped. I don't know if it's maybe just the humidity in here is maybe too low or something, or too high or whatever. I don't know if I mean, it could be interpreted as physical disintegration in some way. I'm not really sure. And my hands feel weird. How are you feeling, John? Do you feel I'm going to be on the nose here. John, how human are you feeling?
How human that's a very odd question. How human do I ever feel?
Yeah, how human are you feeling relative to how human you usually feel?
I mean, I'm scared to really close my eyes and go to sleep. I feel like something's going to get me.
Ooh.
And I mean, I don't mean as in another dream hacker. We've covered that. We know how to deal with them.
Yeah, oh yeah, we are well out of that, son. Don't you
don't
worry.
Need to worry about that.
I've got you covered.
But other than that, no, I feel.
Oh my god, Johnny, all right?
Yeah, why?
No reason. No. So we watched Invasion of the Body Snatchers, directed by Philip Kaufman from 1978. This one is from, starring Donald Sutherland. In fact, starring a whole raft of people. Yeah. In fact, there's a whole list here. So, John, how did you feel? What did you think?
Star-studded, someone might say.
Star-studded, indeed. So how did you feel about this star-studded remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers?
Apart from, I mean, I'll start it by saying this is probably, in my opinion, the best version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. There's been 4 of them, as far as I know. And I mean, there's kind of offshoots as well, ones that are very similar.
There's a weird one that's just called Body Snatchers that was made in the 90s.
Yeah, and then there's one called just Invasion, I think.
Yeah,
the 2000
I think so.
Something 2003 or, but
yeah.
But anyway, I feel that this one it really captures the whole essence and the whole kind of fear, and it captures the message as well, or the deeper messages of conformity and free will and individuality a lot more than the other ones. The 50s one is actually the 1956 version is very good as well, and unfortunately I think the main criticism I have of that is actually the end, where the studio wanted a kind of happy ending, and it was kind of cool that they, Philip Kaufman was able to almost fight back from them doing that, and he refused to actually. We'll get to the ending later, but because it's one of these ones that, yes, it's a massive spoiler, but this movie's actually probably the ending's probably more famous. I think more people have seen the ending shot than have seen the actual movie at this point, unfortunately, and it does detract a bit because it.
Yeah, I think if you
shocking.
Google this film, you will see a still probably immediately of that particular shot, which is kind of annoying for someone going in trying to like find this movie and being like, okay, that's a bit weird.
Especially
also a big spoiler for the end of the film.
Yeah, like massive. It is literally the last shot, but I would have loved to have seen this in the cinema at the time on its premiere night, because they set up pods around the street, and apparently people were coming out freaking out, and the police were rang, everything. Like, people were absolutely terrified that these pods were just out there when they walked out.
Well, they just laid them lying around in the cinema or in the street?
In the street just outside, apparently, which I think's fantastic. And but yeah, and I mean, we had mentioned earlier that or you did about the term pod people.
Indeed, yes.
And I mean, this and the 1950s movie have made that an actual phrase.
In fact, there's a movie. There are movies. There is a movie called Pod People that is just a rip-off of Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Oh, there's so many rip-offs.
Oh god.
But and I think I think what really shines through in this movie is that Philip Kaufman especially had a lot of reverence for the 1950s movie. And I mean, there's a cameo. There's a very good cameo from Kevin McCarthy himself, who was the main actor in the first movie. He actually runs onto the car. He's more or less. A lot of people think this isn't actually a remake; it's a sequel.
Yeah, because that is a recreation of how the original one opens.
Yes, yeah.
Because the original one opens sort of at the ending where the character that he plays is running down the freeway in a traffic jam trying to warn people about what's just happened to him, and then it sort of does a sort of a diddly-doo, like fade out, so like 2 days earlier or whatever, and then you see why he's doing that as it goes back to him discovering the pod people. He's trying to warn people, and he shouts the same things that he shouts in this. Now I think it's a nice cameo. I'm not going to get into like, is it the same universe and because in that film, this film takes place in San Francisco, which is a huge city.
I know what you're about to say here, and I think this is a major distinction that also adds to this this remake working a lot better. But sorry, go on.
Yeah, so the original one takes place in sleepy sort of exactly the kind of town where things like this just don't happen here, and like not necessarily huge population. It's a small town.
Everyone knows everyone.
Everyone knows everyone, which is very, 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 very important for this movie, because again, how they write off a lot of this stuff is that like it's a city. And they're trying to imply that, like in a metropolis, it's like it's not the small town life. It's a big city, and there's so many people, and like as if like living in a city in an urban environment is so impersonal and not like it is in the small town country ways. And like they try to write people off with their paranoia in that way of like, your family. Sorry,
particularly Leonard Nimoy's character, who's like this kind of. Not he's like a psychiatrist writer, but he kind of seems like a bit of a hack.
He's a pop psychiatrist, I think, is what they're trying to get at. That's why Jeff Goldblum's character, Jeff Goldblum, plays a poet.
Yes,
in this, it plays I guess you might say like an intellectual artist who genuinely believes in artistry and art and stuff like that, and does not get along with this guy because he's like. He basically treats him like he is a hack and a fraud, which he might be. We don't really know enough, I think, about Leonard Nimoy's character in this to say. Either way,
I kind of like it. It doesn't. it doesn't need to. It doesn't need to
Yeah.
go in depth into it, but you kind of almost can infer your own opinion. And I mean, to me, there's even the wee glove and all seems like this kind of pretentious addition.
What was that all about?
Yeah, you know, he does seem like someone who's just all about the outward aesthetic. Yeah, and just kind of putting out the right idea of what he is, and is probably a complete snake oil salesman.
Yeah, and he goes out of his way to be a dick.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like particularly to Jeff Goldblum. He's an asshole to him for no reason at times.
Yeah.
So yeah, they play a lot with that, with the things he says about people who think people are being replaced, the imposter thing. Like, he's the one who's writing it off all the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, so they do a lot of good stuff with that. So that's the biggest contrast, that's where the big contrast comes between this film and the film it's a remake of, which I think it makes it's one of those good remakes that takes the original premise, which is a really good premise, and says, how can we take this idea and put it in a different context and maybe do it better? And I think it does do it better. I think I agree with you. This is the best Body Snatcher adaptation, I think.
Plus, there is like a kind of small niggling problem, which, I mean, you know, the writer and Kevin McCarthy, the actor, did say that it's just a coincidence, but the 1956 original one does have a wee bit of that McCarthyism, like that kind of, you know, watch out for communism kind of thing. You know, it does feel like it might be a wee bit like that, but it's kind of unavoidable. You know, it could just be coincidental, because it is hard to avoid that when you're talking about a movie where aliens are taking over and making everyone conform and be the same. You know, you're going to make those comparisons anyway.
And all the main people are paranoid that other people are in the conspiracy.
But for this to come out in the 50s, it feels like there is like a shadow of that over it. And the 70s one kind of does shake that in a way, but it kind of, it's still there, but it kind of almost expands on that by being in the city. You have this whole idea of individuality that's being lost from existing in there and things like that. But I mean, beyond that, it's just, you know, beyond the kind of wider themes of the movie, or the themes that can be inferred into it, like, I think it does really good. It does a really good job of making good, believable characters who you can kind of get behind as well, or who you might kind of maybe not like. I actually personally thought Donald Sutherland's character is a bit of a dick at the start.
He is a dick. Like, I feel like I do feel like that's deliberate as well. He is kind of an asshat. He's like self-important, and he's
health inspector. Like, I mean, he's instantly not going to be liked. You know? Although saying that, I mean, I completely agree with him. Like, shutting down that restaurant for having rat shit in the fucking soup or whatever it was. Too.
Yeah.
But
the bit where he tells the guy, I love the bit where he's like, the guy's trying to say it's not, it's a caper, and then he just goes, all right then, eat it.
Yeah.
And the guy's just like, no.
But he's got a wonderful, like, kind of asshole demeanor about him through most of the movie, but you really do warm to him as well, which is kind of one of the most shocking things maybe. But Brooke Adams, who
I think she's Liz. I think she calls it, their character's Liz.
Yeah, Elizabeth Driscoll is who she plays. Like,
there we go.
She has some brilliant character moments with Donald Sutherland as well. There's one bit that sticks in my head is where, like, she makes her eyes vibrate.
Yeah,
like crazy.
That's weird.
And then she laughs, and it's one of the most natural sounding, because it's like a real proper like idiot kind of laugh almost, but it's kind of endearing, and I do feel like you warm to these characters quite quickly because of wee character moments like this, and it does mean that, like, later when she does become a pod person, it's very heartbreaking. You're kind of, you're sad at the loss of this character, this, you know, which is important again for a movie where the characters are not physically being kind of removed, I suppose, but kind of.
Yeah, well, they are they are being removed. They're removed and replaced. They're being replaced. It's weird how the body snatching happens in Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I mean, it's the same in the original. It works the same way. It's basically like there's a plant and it is connected to you, this pod.
Yeah.
And the longer that you sleep, the more that it sort of drains who you are.
Yeah.
And your sort of vital essence, and forms itself to be a copy of you. Now, they imply that it is you. Yeah. Well, the things themselves imply that, whether or not that's true, is the sort of the point. Really, is it
it's you stripped of all emotion and passion as well. Like you're, which again is another argument of like that cannot be you. Like I personally think that cannot be you. Then how can you say that a musician without passion? What would that be?
Yeah.
Well, we've seen.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
They're
what
in the charts.
Oh, John. Take that, modern music industry.
Yeah. They're quaking in their boots now.
Indeed. Yeah. So I like how you're right. I mean, they do a lot of good stuff with characterization and making you really like care about, which is important for what is ostensibly a horror movie.
Yeah.
Is that like you have to care about the characters that are imperiled.
Yeah. In
order to engage really with a horror movie and be scared for them. Mm-hmm. And I think that really does work, especially with Veronica Cartwright. I think for me, Veronica Cartwright, who plays Nancy, who is her and Jeff Goldblum's character, they're married, aren't they?
Yes, yeah.
They run like a spa. I think is my favorite character in this movie, because a lot of people might remember her from playing Lambert in Alien.
Yeah. Well, she's like a sci-fi. She's been in so many sci-fi.
She's been in a bunch of cool sci-fi stuff. But she has this thing about her where she has this great sort of nervous energy.
Yeah.
That she brings to a role whenever she's being frightened and freaking out. Yeah. You see it, she really goes to town on it in Alien.
Yeah.
But she does it in this now and then as well, and it's just like, it's so convincingly real.
Yeah.
Like, of someone having an actual panicky freak out.
There's a moment where she bumps into Brooke Adams and Donald Sutherland on the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all still human at this point, and yeah, just what you're saying, it's that nervous energy that she brings to that scene. It adds the whole tension. Like it's mainly from her. Not to say Donald Sutherland and Brooke Adams aren't acting well; they do fantastically. But she really stood out to me in that moment where she's freaking out, trying to work out, are they pod people, and we know that they aren't, but we don't know anything about her, and it is
she
very
been,
well done. Yeah,
what's she been up to?
And especially since at that point, Jeff Goldblum, who was the last person we seen her with, is now a pod person. You have that whole thing of like, oh no, don't stop and talk to her.
Don't give yourselves away, because that's the point where they're all like, let's pretend to be emotionless and walk around, which they are so bad at. They fuck it up. She's the only one who sort of holds it together ever, weirdly, with that stuff, whereas Donald Sutherland and Brooke Adams, they are just constantly fucking that up hard every time. It's like, oh my god, like, well, to be honest, there is one point where it happens and it is completely understandable, where like it's like the local like banjo playing guy and his dog, that thing,
they get mixed up or something, because
he steps on the pod. He finds that guy asleep with his dog next to a pod, and then he like stomps on the pod and break it, and then takes off. And I assume because he did that, it got messed up, but that dog basically runs by with that guy's face on it. And she's like, oh my god, which of course she would.
And somewhere the writer of Mars Attack went, wait a minute,
Oh god, yeah. What you mean? I think that was Tim Burton. I think
Was
maybe
it? Oh
Tim
yeah,
Burton
was
is
it Tim Burton wrote it?
I think that's wholly responsible for that friggin' train wreck.
Yeah. But yeah, that scene, it's kind of equal parts kind of funny and ridiculous looking, and also really horrendously horrific.
Yeah.
I would definitely scream if that thing ran.
If that thing walked past me, I would be like, Jesus Christ! Yeah, I'd probably be worse than her.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think everyone's performances are really, really good. They like Leonard Nimoy is kind of aggravating and smug and a little bit hateful.
Yeah.
I mean, but he's supposed to be. Donald Sutherland, as you say, starts off and you're like, this guy's smug and he's a dick, but you really warm to him throughout the course of the movie, because it turns out he actually cares about people and his friends.
Yeah.
And he's trying to help, and he doesn't like discount people. Like Brooke Adams is freaking out about her husband being weird, and he's the only one, he believes her.
Yeah.
And he's trying to help her. She's really good as well at being like, like her performance in general whenever she freaks out, and then whenever she becomes emotionless as well, it's really good. Like anytime the contrast between that stuff's really good. Jeff Goldblum isn't Jeff Goldbluming that much. Maybe he hadn't got to that point.
No,
maybe
it's a very, very young Jeff Goldblum, and
yes,
yeah, he's acting, and he's acting well. And
indeed,
he's not just like doing his Jeff Goldblum thing of being Jeff Goldblum and people going,
he's not standing there Goldbluming and fake stuttering and stuff. And it's grand. So he's good in it. He's a good character. He does exasperated struggling artists quite well.
There's a ton of cameos in this as well. Apart from Kevin McCarthy, there's very early on, and it goes nowhere, Robert Duvall plays a priest who's just sitting on swings.
I was so baffled by that, because I remember looking at it and saying, "Is that Robert Duvall?"
It is, and
then I was like, "It is Robert Duvall."
He just happened to be around that day, and they kind of Philip Kaufman said, "Do you want to play a priest just sitting there?" No, apparently the whole purpose of that is it's to make you feel kind of uneasy from the beginning and know something's up, because even though this is before, this is during these pod things landing on the leaves and creating the wee flowers and stuff, he wanted this kind of uneasy feel to this scene, and it does. It makes you're just sitting there kind of going, what is going on? There's something odd about the scene that you can't quite put your finger on. And the director of the 1956 movie plays the Don Siegel. He plays the taxi driver who is driving them about at one point, and actually kind of more or less driving them to a checkpoint where they will get captured by more of the body snatchers. But there's a funny thing about their acting in that scene may not have been acting at all, because Don didn't put his glasses on while he was driving around San Francisco in the dark, and Donald Sutherland and Brooke Adams knew this and were shitting themselves the whole time. So,
that's terrible.
Yeah, so I like that wee story, but so there's all these random wee cameos that kind of work very well. But one of the main things I think I love about this movie is actually the Foley work in it, because at the start. At the very start, it's almost oppressive how much Foley there is of birds and crickets and things like this. And slowly as the movie goes on, that starts dropping away. And by the end, all the Foley stuff that you will ever hear at the end are mechanical things, like the foghorns or machinery and things like this. So even Foley wise, they were thinking we have to make this seem really unnatural, that by the end of this there's just nothing natural. It is all mechanical. It is all stripped of emotion, essentially.
Yeah, it's the wonder of nature slowly fades into the background and just becomes, well, here's just these essentially monsters just taking over and subsuming everything, which is very conceptually very cool and also a little bit scary. Yeah. This, I think definitely this is as far as the body snatcher oeuvre goes, this is right up there at the top.
Yeah.
With
It's the high watermark for it, definitely.
Yeah, with like aliens are invading, but it's the subtle invasion, you know.
I mean, as we kind of pointed out early on there's been so many kind of rip-offs. You know, there have been the official like remakes and things like this, but particularly of this movie, there are so many rip-offs and parodies and things like that you know it has really put its stamp on kind of modern culture essentially.
Yeah, it has made a big there's a lot of TV shows, especially like sci-fi TV shows and horror TV shows that just straight up have like a Body Snatchers episode. You know, there's an episode of Buffy that is this. There's an episode of Angel that is this. There's an episode of the X-Files that is this. There's so many any like weird sci-fi TV show, like Supernatural as well. Yeah. There's every like TV show that is like a Monster of the Week thing usually has slapped in a Invasion of the Body Snatchers reference or straight up just homage somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's just, and you can spot it almost immediately, and it's great. So I think, the performances are great. It's very well made. All the stuff you're saying about like the Foley work and like all that being really thoughtful.
The Foley and the sound in general,
brilliant.
The editing's good. Like, you know,
the special effects I think are sometimes brilliant.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're but there's one particular part that is actually really freaky. I like the look of whenever like the sort of unformed people is kind of cool.
It looks really disturbing.
Yeah, there's a particular scene where there's a whole bunch of them and they're falling asleep in the garden, as it were, outside of, I think, is it Donald Sutherland's place? It's somebody's home that they're hiding out in.
Yeah.
And it's in the garden out there, and he's falling asleep on like a sun lounger outside or something, and they're all around him, and it's everyone, and they're all writhing.
Yeah.
In this way that's really disturbing, and they're slowly, some of them, they look like fetus-like.
Yeah.
But like huge and person-sized, and they're kind of disturbing, and they're making some, again, back to the Foley sounds, they're making some really horrific noises. Oh my god, they're making some horrible, especially the one that is becoming Donald Sutherland is making, I assume it's him doing the noises, but they sound absolutely horrific. That stuff looks brilliant. The pods themselves sometimes look alright. Whenever they're like moving and stuff, they maybe look a bit crappy. But the weird sort of undulating sort of membrane that you see inside them looks really good and slightly disturbing.
I would say overall the special effects are pretty good for this, you know. And, obviously all practical because it's 1978, and I think it works in its favor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks the business, as it were. Whenever all that stuff is happening, and like the part that, like, when you see the one that is becoming Jeff Goldblum, like initially you're like, it looks like whatever, and then they keep flicking back to it, and it's just slowly getting a little bit more and more like him.
Yeah.
And that is like raising the tension of this thing. Sort of, you slowly start to recognize it, and then people start saying, okay, its nose is bleeding now, just like your nose is bleeding. And you're like, it looks great. And like, as it whenever it's almost him, you're like, oh yeah, it does kind of look like him, doesn't it? Oh, that's weird, and like just sort of slightly unsettling.
Yeah, and I mean that's this movie in a nutshell. Like, you know, it does it does a brilliant job of making you feel unsettled throughout, and it's very subtle. Like it kind of ramps up how unsettled you feel throughout it. You know, where first it's just, this doesn't feel right, and then it eventually evolves into like, this is horrible and this is disgusting and I want it to stop, kind of thing. Absolutely.
Much like it's not going to be the last time I'm going to mention this in this particular episode, but much like John Carpenter's The Thing.
Oh, John Carpenter.
Yeah, I know. So it has that same sort of tension that film does very, very, very well of being in a group and feeling alone in a group. That sort of like, who can I trust? Maybe no one.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And like, here's this person I know, but are they this person I know? I mean, it's almost a body snatchery movie itself, but sort of, yeah. I mean, you could classify it as that. And I think it does owe a little bit to this film, influence-wise, especially like some of the effects. Actually, the bit we were talking about in that garden scene where they're writhing around and it looks kind of horrible, and like that. There's a few moments in the thing where the effects kind of mimic that of something that is like not quite formed.
So you heard it here first. The Thing is a rip-off of the Invasion of
the Body Snatchers. Yeah.
Yes, it's good that you're willing to let that go, Kevin. And
it's part of my therapy.
Yeah,
it's part of my therapy. I have to come on here and admit that to you, John, and apologize. I have to apologize to all the people I've wronged. Yeah. So, John, I'm sorry. But yeah, it does. It's you can see a little bit of that in the thing of this film.
Oh, definitely.
Which I like, and like the way the effects are, the practical effects, and like particularly that weird membrane that exists inside the paws before they come out looks, because it's weirdly like meaty looking, almost, which I really like. It's nasty. It's a little that's the bit where you're just like, ew, what is that in there? Yeah, and so it's great.
I have to commend Philip Kaufman for not shooting any alternate endings as well, because I think they were kind of trying to pressurize him, much like Siegel was pressured to make a happy ending in the 1956 version. Kaufman kind of refused, or he pretended that it was maybe destroyed or something, but
no.
So that they couldn't turn around and go, yeah, the happy ending tested better with audiences, or some of that bullshit that they do. So like we got this iconic, brilliant, dark ending, which apparently everyone, or sorry, not everyone, but Veronica Cartwright was not told. Like, she was actually told the ending was going to be different, so her reaction is genuine, and it's, you know, it's her responding to, like, being an actor, really, you know, responding to, oh, he's doing something, I better change, improvise here, and it works tremendously well. And for it to just cut to credits with no music is amazing. It's just a fucking brilliant idea.
Fuck it, you know, we're done.
Yeah, it just like cuts and it's like, oh my god, and like it doesn't give you anything to like to latch on to. There's no music, it's just the credits. That's it. Like, go home.
There's something I like about a just sort of a cut to black credits silence.
Yeah.
On a dramatic sort of extreme bummer ending like that, that I love. It's something that like you'll sometimes get it in, like in a TV show. They'll sometimes do that where you'll be expecting the music, but something happens, like, and then the music doesn't happen.
Yeah. And
you're like, oh, and then you're sitting there and you're like, oh, and you're feeling bad about something, you know. It's something I've noticed, actually. It's weird to bring this up, but I've been rewatching The West Wing recently. And there's a few episodes of that where it ends and it's a real, like, in fact, nearly every episode it ends and it's a real downer.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you've got this music, and you're like, that is so jarring.
Yeah.
And took me completely emotionally out of the moment. And it happens in every episode. I don't think there's a single episode where they don't just shove that extremely upbeat, ridiculous, over the top, silly Broadway musical music in your face right at the end, and it's so out of place. So I really appreciate it when a film just is able to not use music, to decide to not use music at all, and just let whatever has happened speak for itself.
It's also, I mean, just as you're talking there, you know, TV series do it as well, where a lot of them do have, like, as you're saying, like, you know, their theme music or whatever, like, plays at the end, and it's usually the same one. but there are times where, like, I think I've seen it in things like Buffy and stuff where
Yeah, I think the one where her mother dies.
yeah, like
they
in
had a
particular,
silent
that's what
credit
I was
sequence.
thinking. Where it almost feels out of place in this series about a young girl who kills vampires, but this very serious thing happens, and it's one of these cuts to the credits with nothing.
Yeah,
And it, as you said, it works. It works so much better than.
yeah. It lets you sit there and really absorb
Yeah.
what's just happened, as opposed to something like The West Wing, where it's like something awful just happened, and then like, Jesus Christ, lads, come on.
So there you go, folks.
Let's
You've
not
heard
do
it here
this.
first. The West Wing's not worth your time now either. So that's the
Just
thing. Just don't bother watching The Thing. Just watch
Yeah.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers and watch Buffy instead of West Wing.
I take it all back. Everything I like is terrible.
Okay, John, well, I don't know about you, John, but I'm definitely human. And I can see that you're looking very human now as well.
I'm very human.
Yeah, never mind my extremely visible weird green veins that I've developed. It's just because I'm allergic.
Let's go to the game.
We should go to the local game. But first, before we go to the local game, we should talk about something that humans, that we as humans, humans like movies. We are human.
Yes, we are human. We like
Yes.
movies.
We saw The Faculty, didn't we?
Yes.
We saw The Faculty. So, John, my human friend, what did you think of Robert Rodriguez's The Faculty?
Well, I think it's quite fortunate that we mentioned Buffy the Vampire Slayer earlier, because
Indeed.
this movie kind of feels like that style. It feels like a
does.
long episode of Buffy almost.
Yeah.
Even the way it's shot, and it's like a fun. I would almost describe it as kind of the way Scream was almost a breakdown of slasher movies. This movie's kind of like a breakdown of sci-fi horror movies. In
Yeah.
a sense, there's a lot of homages, and I really do believe, you always have that thing of like there's a fine line between ripping off and like a
Paying
homage.
tribute.
Yeah, paying tribute, and I think this one does it because it does it with a nod and a wink.
It does.
You know.
It does it in a way where it literally tells you that it is doing it at
Yeah.
times.
And
They
even
literally
even
talk.
some of the actors who are, the coach.
Oh, Robert Patrick, man.
Exactly.
Can I just say-
T-1000 himself.
Can I just say the star of the show, as far as I'm concerned, in this movie? Now, I don't think anyone's bad. I think everyone's actually really, really good
Yeah.
in this. But there's something about him. It's no accident that he is the first sort of character we're really introduced to in the film.
Yeah.
That like his performance is so just delightfully just arch and cheesy.
And he's one of the ones we don't really get to, we don't actually see much of him.
No, you get a few seconds of
being
him at the
human.
beginning. Yeah.
So like most of the time we know him only through the being body snatched.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, you know straight away what kind of guy he is. He's a bully.
Yeah.
He's this ball bag basically. He's just being really nasty to the kids who he's meant to be coaching, unjustly as well. And then almost instantly, that's it. You get this wee scene of someone standing over him.
Yeah.
And he's out of frame, and that's him. He's body snatched.
He turns around and he's like, "What the hell do you want?" And then we fade out. And then that's it. And then all of a sudden it's, "Hey now, you're a rock star." And that's not the song they use, but it may as well be.
Yeah.
But like, look, here we are at the high school. Here's the nerds, here's the jocks, here's the geeks. It's so on the nose.
Which is
that.
a very American thing. I don't think we really have it as distinct here. And
Yeah.
I often wonder these things, like, are those are American schools actually that like, you know, are all these groups that
so cliquey?
Yeah, you know.
Apparently so. Having spoken to Americans about it, apparently it actually kind of is like that.
So bizarre to me. Like,
Yeah,
because essentially when we went to school, we were friends with some of the jocks. Let's say, you know, when
people you might term as jocks
Yeah.
if you were making a movie about an American high school. Yeah,
you know, but it just seems very odd. But so maybe we're lucky that way. But
yeah.
no, this movie just kind of. It's a fun watch. It doesn't take itself too seriously.
I'm gonna go ahead and just say I really, 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 really like this movie a lot because of all the things we've said. Because it has such strong, over-the-top performances from the people who need to be over the top.
Yeah,
and it's so brazen and open about its influences. It's a little bit cringy here and there when they're doing the high school stuff, especially with there's one of the characters who's supposed to be like, I'm the cheerleader, but they also try to have her be like intellectual because she like works for the high school paper, which is again a crazily foreign concept to you and I'm sure, the school paper. Delilah, played by Jordana Brewster. So like.
Apparently, what do you call her? Charisma Carpenter, who played Cordelia in Buffy, was approached to play this role, and she turned it down.
Not surprised at all.
Yeah, turned it down because the character is literally Cordelia from Buffy.
Yeah, that's very true.
And again, you know, so this is why bringing up Buffy, there's so many parallels you can make with this. Even Sarah Michelle Gellar, I think, was approach to play a character in this.
Yeah, which is crazy because like they were already too old to be playing the characters they were playing in Buffy, and this is like 4 years after Buffy started, 4 or 5 years after a few years after Buffy started anyway, and it's like, yeah, you're way too old, although they were probably still at high school in Buffy at that point maybe. And like, because like Charisma Carpenter was like nearly 30 when Buffy started, and she was playing someone who was supposed to be like 16 or 17, which is ludicrous. This film sort of has that problem as well. Not as severe, but like every film we talk about that's set in a high school always has the same problem. Like Hackers was so bad for this. I mean, they were all in their mid to late 20s, nearly all of them. And this is not so bad.
No, I mean you've got the forever young Elijah Wood, who always looks like he's older than us, and he probably looks younger.
He does
at this stage.
It's him and Tobey Maguire drunk from the same mystery spring in the forest. I think they actually went to school together as well, which is weird. Which leads me into the conspiracy further of these weird, like, because like. Tobey Maguire was playing Peter Parker in the Spider-Man movies in like 1999 or it was like 2001, I think those came out. Yeah. And like he was in his late 20s then, playing a kid who was supposed to be like 16. Like he's the same age as Elijah Wood.
Yeah.
And this is like 3 years before that. So it's
do you know as well? It was actually this movie that Elijah Wood. It was someone. It might have been. Robert Rodriguez, or I'm not sure, but this is where Elijah Wood heard about Lord of the Rings, and he wasn't going to go for it until someone convinced him on the set. They went, "No, you should go for it."
I mean, you look like Frodo.
Yeah, you look like Frodo, probably. No one really knows what Frodo looks like at this point, and now that was possibly his biggest role.
I'd say. I mean, he was known and famous before Lord of the Rings, but Lord of the Rings was just such a big deal because like Deep Impact was before that, and he was in that. So, and he was also in is it The Good Son, which I think it's not a good film.
No.
When he was quite young, he was in that. It's not a good film. It's a bad film, but I kind of want to find an excuse to watch it here. But anyway, we'll figure that out eventually. So yeah, I think. I knew who he was when I saw The Faculty already. Yeah. I'll say that. I already knew who Elijah Wood was, but In fact, and then seeing Lord of the Rings was like, here, that's that guy from the faculty. So it was a bit jarring actually for me, I think. But he's good. Clea Duvall is just typecast as usual.
Yeah.
As she always is, as the outcast gothy kid.
Yeah.
Which just seems to be her fate. Around this time, that's all she was doing, was playing people like that. But she does it pretty well, and like, you know, everyone's kind of a stereotype.
Yeah, and again, it seems almost intentional. Like, you know, as I said, it's the same as that kind of Scream thing, where because it's almost parodying these kind of movies that yes, people are the stereotypes, and they kind of are trying to break out of their roles in certain ways. Like the jock guy doesn't want to be a jock. He wants to be. He's this line of where, you know, he worked hard for that D.
Yeah.
And stuff, you know, because even though he wants to like work on his grades, like everyone's kind of being down on him for wanting to like actually study, and they're
he's like, I want to educate myself, and everyone's like, no,
you're too stupid.
You're too stupid. Stay on the football team, and you'll get to go to university by being on the football team. And he's like, no, I want to get there on my own merits, and everyone's just like, you don't have those merits though.
Yeah, which is kind of hilarious.
Yeah, it's like kind of mean, but like you kind of like maybe he is dumb. I don't know. But yeah, so he's good. He's trying to break out of his thing. Elijah Wood playing the nerd character doesn't really do much in the way of that.
Well,
at one point they say to him like, oh, when did you become Sigourney Weaver? And I remember being confused because I was like, did he become Sigourney Weaver? 'Cause I never really felt like he ran away a lot.
They didn't mean literally, Kevin.
I know, I'm not. Oh, John, don't expose me here.
Yeah, I mean,
stop it.
Yeah, they're kind of, they're almost foreshadowing like later. Yes, he does kind of become a bit of a hero character in a sense. Like, you know, he does risk his life and help the others. But yeah, I know what you mean. At that point, he hasn't really done anything. It's because I think he talks back to someone, and I think that's about it. But
yeah, because they do point all this stuff out. Now, there is a scene which you have to have in every movie like this, and once again, I'm going to bring up the thing.
John Carpenter.
Because it is literally a carbon copy of a scene from the thing in several different ways. But they do have a point where they are pointing all these things out to each other. Yeah. Like, they are pointing at, like, the jock and saying, oh, suddenly you quit the football team and want to study hard, and oh, like the cheerleader girl who's all about like her looks and whatever is now like dressing down and coming to school with her glasses on, and that's a thing. And like there's been this whole thing with Clea Duvall's character where there was a rumor that she was a lesbian because people were being mean to her basically, but like all of a sudden you're into guys, and it's like no. And that's where they then throw out the sort of like the thing to Elijah Wood. It feels like it's almost everybody needs to have one of these things. So we're going to say this about Elijah Wood's character, even if it's not necessarily true. But that's the point where they're like doing the test, which is just like in the thing when they do the blood test. Yeah. Where they're like, oh, I'm going to like put the hot thing in the blood, and then if it reacts, you're one of the things.
And instead in this movie, it's you have to sniff this caffeine.
You have to snort Josh Hartnett's homemade cocaine or whatever that he's made out of household stuff and caffeine pills. So that's it's because it's they actually justify it pretty well. I think they do a good job of justifying all this crap, all this dumb stuff by being like, okay, so the creatures that are infecting people, they are reliant on, they need water, they need a lot of water to live.
Yeah.
And this drug is a diuretic, which basically means that it leaches water out of things, out of living things.
Very good kind of montage scene where it shows you like the faculty getting more and more water brought in as they kind of progressively get taken over. Yeah. Because initially, as we mentioned, it's only the coach, and the other teachers are kind of going, oh, coach is thirsty, isn't he? And things like this. And he doesn't seem to be responsive to them. Like he's almost ignoring them until another teacher that we know has been taken over comes in, and they communicate in a very
they have
unnatural
way. They have a knowing nod that they do to each other, which felt like exactly 100% ripped from Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yes, exactly.
But absolutely intentionally and openly. Because, I mean, literally they have Clea Duvall's character as Stokes literally say, oh, it's like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, while she's talking to, because it's Elijah Wood is like convinced something's up.
Yeah.
Well, he's seen a bunch of stuff, and like she doesn't believe him, but she just starts talking about, dude, too many movies, and then starts literally talking about Invasion of the Body Snatchers and how they became emotionless and their behavior changed and yada 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 yada, and we're just like, okay, here we go. Here's Robert Rodriguez, and everybody just basically saying, yep, that's what we're doing, people. This is Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Only in the school.
Yeah, and also The Thing, because here we are in this scene where we're doing the tests, and there's even a sofa that people are sitting on in the same way that they do in The Thing, except they're tied to it in The Thing. But in this, they're getting up and they're falling around and yada, 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 and there's people who don't want to take it. And then there's like literally when someone gets exposed as being a snatchy. Is that a good term? A snatchy?
Yeah, that works, yeah.
A body snatchy. They literally do the same thing that happens. It's the character of Palmer, I believe, in The Thing, is when he monsters out, and then the only difference is like she runs out through the wall.
Yeah.
She literally crashes through the wall in exactly the same way that the Palmer thing does. The only difference being that he's on fire when he does it.
Yeah.
But it's identical, the whole scene of accusations and people losing their temper and doing the test one at a time and being like, no, you do it, I want to see you do it, I don't trust you, and holding the gun on each other and stuff until they do the test. And I was just like, again, I was delighted because I was just like, yeah, here we go. This is brilliant and I love it. This is Robert Rodriguez, just little love letter to John, I guess, to John Carpenter.
There's also the other part where Famke Janssen.
Famke Janssen.
Yeah, I'm terrible at pronouncing things, as we know. So there's a bit where when she's taken over, her head gets cut off.
Yes.
And it crawls along very much, again, like The Thing.
Like the Norris thing.
Yeah. So it doesn't hide from that. I mean, even it's something I forgot, but it just came into my head there. Jon Stewart's character in this is literally called Professor Edward Furlong.
He is called Edward Furlong.
Yes.
Now, I noticed that he was called Furlong, and I was like, that's not a reference.
If you look up the credits,
Furlong.
It says Edward Furlong. Professor Edward Furlong.
Is that like a weird reference to Terminator 2 because Robert Patrick is in this film?
There's also a lot of people think as well that that bit where Robert Patrick runs towards the principal very near the start. That's very much, a Terminator 2 reference as well. It's a bit too short for me, but I can see where they're coming from. Like he kind of has the same kind of determined robotic run in it. So, but so I mean, as we said, this movie almost just seems like a bit of a parody movie in a sense, but albeit like with the utmost respect, and you can tell they really love the stuff that they're mimicking. Yeah,
you can tell they love it because again, we're back to like the character, Clea Duvall's character, Stokes, loves these films.
Yeah.
And she is the sort of vector for that, much in the same way that, as you were saying before, we talked about Wes Craven for a minute, as we did last week, but Wes Craven, who made Scream, he put in, I can't remember the name of the character in Scream, but Jamie Kennedy plays him.
The nerdy...
the guy who's into horror movies and specifically slasher movies, who literally stands there and tells people, here are the rules of slasher movies, and here's why this is daft and stupid, but why we love it.
Yeah.
Here's why we love it so much, and Wes Craven does that and that, and this is Robert Rodriguez and everybody just doing that in this, of like, here's this character who likes these movies too, and I'm going to use them to voice how much I like these movies and why we're doing the things we're doing. And it's just like, it makes the whole thing, it gives it a nice, almost like friendly tone.
Yeah.
As far as that goes, where you're like, they like, especially as me, like, I love dumb horror movies. I love the Vision of Body Snatchers, I love The Thing, all that stuff. It's nice to be like, here, I love these films too.
Yeah.
And here's a movie I made about it. Isn't this cool? And I'm like, yes, Robert, it is cool. It's very cool, and I like it a lot.
Yeah, like a love letter for a genre, essentially.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's Robert Rodriguez, so he does everything well. You know, it is well directed. It's, you know, it doesn't really stand out in a way, you know, but
you're not like, oh, look how technically brilliant these shots are and everything.
Again,
no,
it's very competent for what it's doing. And I mean, some of the CGI is a wee bit
some
rough,
dated,
dated, like especially when Professor Edward Furlong's fingers get cut off.
It's fun when that happens, though. I think the fact that all this ludicrous stuff is happening in that scene makes it fine. That the little red tendrils look kind of crappy and like they're not really there. And of course, it's just Jon Stewart just being like I always forget that he's in this, and then I see it and I'm like, oh, there's Jon Stewart.
Yeah,
I miss him. I haven't seen him in a while.
Yeah, I think intentionally. So he's just kind of given up and he's just hiding in the woods somewhere.
He couldn't be bothered.
Yeah,
he couldn't be bothered anymore. Yeah.
But and the ending is kind of, because I watched a wee interview with Robert Rodriguez, you know, on this film, and he kind of alludes to the fact that a body snatcher movie set in a school is almost perfect, because that's the point in your life, and I agree with him, where you don't really know yourself yet, and no one really knows himself, so like you don't like, no one else knows you clearly if you don't know yourself, and how can you tell if someone gets body snatched? And it all feeds back into that scene that you were saying, where like suddenly the jock just wants to book learn and stuff, and
suddenly the jock wants to buckle down and study, you know, and that is legitimately like something that he could have woken up one morning and just been like, I am bummed out by this and I want to make a change, or he may have been taken over by a parasitic alien organism from beyond the stars, you know.
And I mean, again, as comes naturally with these movies, is the whole idea of not being able to trust anyone else, and you kind of have, and like in particular the establishment, which in this movie is the faculty, and like, so it is a good setting for this as well, and you can kind of explore kind of these deeper themes, albeit in this quite, you know, pulpy, light-hearted movie. Yeah,
that is very on the nose with these themes, I think, especially when you hear the soundtrack. This one particular song on the soundtrack, which is like a song like Pink Floyd's Another Brick in the Wall. Now there's a weird version of it on the soundtrack. I think the original, I don't think the original's on the soundtrack. They have two weird versions. They have Another Brick in the Wall Part 1 and Part 2 done by different things. This is a weird one. It's like, it's Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine and Lane Staley from Alice in Chains singing on it. It's really strange, and it's one of those things where it's a song I know very, 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 very well. And when I hear this weird version of it in the background of the movie, I do find that a little bit jarring when I hear it, and I think, oh, I don't know. But it's such an on-the-nose song to have that I think that encapsulates the tone of the film really well, of just like, we don't need no education, we don't need no thought control.
Exactly.
I mean, it's like, yeah, okay, I get it, and I love that you just slap that in there, and like, it's kind of a motif that comes up throughout the movie. Where you hear it in the background, and you kind of go, like, early on in the film, you hear the music from it, and you're kind of like, is that another brick in the wall? It kind of is.
Yeah, they do the
at the very early on, you're doing it, you're like, what is that? And then they have a bit during like the football game where there's actually, you hear it and you hear the lyrics. And you're like, oh, it's some weird cover of it with Lane Staley singing, which is strange, but I guess, you know, maybe that was cheaper than
that's just what I thought.
That was paying the Pink Floyd royalties. Let's get this grunge guy and some other guys in to do another weird version of it, and we'll pay them for it instead of giving whatever Pink Floyd's record company wanted for royalties. I don't know. But that's a really good song to use. Again, depends on your opinions of whether you think that's too obvious or not, but I think the tone of the film is so obvious with that stuff that
I mean, if it was trying to be more subtle and it used it, then that would be
That would wreck
really
it.
awful. That would
That
the whole
would be
thing would fall
totally
apart.
jarring, where it's like, here, just in case you didn't get it, here you go. But at this point, they know you get it,
Yeah.
and they're like, let's just slap this in here too, because why the hell not?
I mean, because they waste no time whatsoever. Like as soon as the coach gets body snatched,
Mm-hmm.
he is trying to kill the principal. There is no, or well, he seems to be trying to kill her. Like it ends up.
He's definitely, see, that's the thing you gotta wonder about. Like, he says whenever he does that, and he pushes a pencil through her hand,
Yeah.
and then he has this really satisfied look on his face, and he says, I always wanted to do that.
Yeah.
Which is like, I guess what that implies about the body snatchies in this, as opposed to like in Invasion of the Body Snatchers, they had the memories and stuff. In this, do they have the memories? They seem to know everything about who they were.
Yeah.
They seem to be the same people, in a way.
Only that
I think-
they've their own agenda essentially. It seems a wee bit more insidious. Like they still seem to have emotions, because I mean the coach seems very annoyed at throughout the thing, but increasingly annoyed at some people. And Famke Janssen's character is really pissed off with Zeke, the school
Josh
drug
Hartnett.
dealer.
Yeah, she's extremely adversarial towards him, and that escalates throughout the course of the film, which is a fun little interaction. Although it seems that they also have this weird thing where they basically communicate that someone has been body snatched by having them being bright and alert, but also it seems like, I don't know, like, oh, now these women are dressing sexy.
Yeah, there
Seems
is
to be a weird thing.
Yeah.
They do it with Famke Janssen. They do it with
principal.
Salma Hayek. They do it with the principal as well. They have that all. I was kind of like, I don't know, lads. That's a bit.
But it's also, I suppose, they're acting opposed to how they normally do.
It's in contrast to the way we saw them before, I guess. But
because the head cheerleader girl, Delilah, she starts dressing more
She goes the other
casual.
way.
So
yeah.
But again, it's an actual fact. We don't know when she gets body snatched, and it actually doesn't make sense if she has been body snatched before she arrives in the school dress like that, because she has so many opportunities to get Elijah Wood and to get this like band of people. But again, it's one of those movies. Yes, there probably is a million plot holes in it, but you'll either forgive it or you won't. And it's
you could go back and pick it apart probably, but I'm sure there's a few wee moments where she wasn't with anyone here, and she wasn't with anyone
exactly.
here,
And
so. If anyone is off camera for long enough, it's like whenever they come back
fair
on.
game.
Whenever they come back on, every time it's like, well, are they now one of them? Who knows?
Especially if they're off camera with a particular other character.
Indeed, yes. When we learn later, spoilers. Although, like, if you want to talk about, like, so I think the way. How do you feel about how this movie ends? You don't necessarily need to literally say the ending.
I mean, it's very convenient how
It
it
is
is.
very
It kind of wraps it up in a wee bow. Again, because I'll just refer back to this feeling like a Buffy the Vampire episode or something like that. Where it is just this like wee bit of pulpy fun. It's just they just want to wrap it up in the bow, and that's it. And It is what it is. Like they do set up kind of, as we said, that diuretic drug as how to combat it, and then there's the further convenience that if you kill the queen, the rest of the creatures will die.
Which I don't know where they pull that from. Clea Duvall says that.
Yeah.
That is not something from Invasion of the Body Snatchers. No. That is not something. That is the thing I thought when she said that was Lost Boys, actually, because that's how Lost Boys works.
Yeah. And
it also is sometimes how werewolf lore works. Whereas if the werewolf that made you is killed, you stop being a werewolf. But again, I don't know. They pull that out of nowhere. She says it, and then as soon as she says it, it just becomes true. As far as everyone is concerned, that's how we solve this, and then that is how they solve this.
Yeah.
Once
it gets solved, there's like weird. I kind of like the end of it because it almost feels that the aliens won in some weird way, and that this is like there's like a second stage to this invasion because all the characters have changed in this kind of wee end part where like the goth girl is, you know, very commas normal now, or more normal. Like she's not dressing in.
She's dressing in bright colors.
Yeah,
now.
you know, which is kind of like really. So like, what's wrong with being a goth? Like fuck you guys.
Yeah, I don't understand like why she would change anything about herself.
Yeah.
Elijah Wood becomes more confident.
Yeah.
Which is a positive thing, I guess.
And like Delay, the cheerleader girl, is more humble, and you know, she's kind of it's implied that she's dating him now, or maybe more than implied. I can't remember.
No, they full on kiss like.
And so they are heavily implied. Let's say.
Yes, it's very heavily implied. Yes, that's what that is. It's full on mouth and tongue kissing. Yes,
it's like when people were at my wedding, they were like going, "Oh, you know, it's heavily implied that I might."
Do you think something's going on between these two? They're up there next to this priest and saying all these things. Are they together?
But there's a particular one that's very, very strange, and that is Zeke and the teacher played by Famke Janssen. That
is, in fact, legislated against, I believe, in a lot of places.
Where that one is heavily implied that she is dating this student now.
Yeah.
And plus, he just lights up a cigarette while he's playing football, which
he's
I thought was
sparking up on the field. Yeah.
Which just adds another level of craziness to it. But I don't know if you noticed as well that Jon Stewart's character survived having the pencil rammed into his eye.
No.
And his fingers cut off. In the credits, there's actually like a wee scene. It's kind of funny where he's his hand bandaged up and he's an eye patch on.
Man, did I miss it? Did I miss a Marvel style mid credit scene?
It's not. No, it's kind of like not mid credits. It's just, you know, wee flashes of kind of thing of characters just before
I missed
the credits.
I'm raging.
Yeah, no, you should watch it. It's quite funny. I laughed.
Okay, I might have to go back and check that out because I was basically of the opinion that the people that they killed died.
Yeah,
you know.
So was I till I seen him, because there was a moment of like confusion of like, what's he doing with the bandages? I don't remember that. I was like, oh, that's him after it, and he's just got like he's survived this somehow, and it also explains why Famke Janssen has the scarf around her neck because her head got cut off.
Yeah, her head gets cut off, but then you see it reattach
in
that scene. Well, she's in the middle of reattaching when we cut away. So you assume that her body was somehow healed from the inside.
Yeah.
And I'll let them away with that, certainly.
Yeah.
You know, but Jon Stewart was very dead.
Yeah.
Well, oh well, that's fine. So I think this film as a whole, I think it's fun. And it doesn't take itself very seriously at all.
No.
It's not an out-and-out comedy. It's still one of those kinds of films. It's still like a sci-fi horror movie.
Yeah.
But it's a self-aware sci-fi horror movie. I think your comparison to Scream is kind of perfect. In that no, don't mention it. Yeah, it's essentially that for sci-fi horror what Scream was for slasher movies.
Yeah,
it is that where they literally talk. It exists in a world where these other movies exist.
Yeah,
and it's happening, and they acknowledge it and they talk about it, and then they like you and I.
Yeah, I was going to say they basically. Is this where we got the idea? Actually, oh god.
No, they ripped us off.
Oh yeah, they ripped us off. That's right.
Yeah, I had this idea in 1997.
It's just there was no way to. Yeah, podcast didn't exist back then.
Podcast didn't exist in 1997, so I couldn't do it.
And it took us a while to get our shit together.
I just had to wait like 23 years or whatever. And then that was the right time. So, they use the films to educate themselves about how to deal with the threat.
Which is a fantastic idea. Fun. Yeah,
it's a really good idea. How clever.
Possibly the best idea I've ever heard.
I know, it's brilliant. So, in many ways, that makes this the perfect movie, doesn't it, John?
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, yes, I think this film is fun. It's great. It's well made. there are certainly dumb things going on, but they're acknowledged dumb things, and it's okay that they're dumb things because it's kind of a deliberately dumb movie.
Yeah.
And in fact, when you think about it, it's kind of a dumb concept in a way. It's a silly concept.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Or at least they treat it in a way that is slightly silly, but they're not sort of laughing at it. They're not poking fun at body snatchers. They're having fun with body snatchers, and that's what makes it good. It's a film that likes the movies that it is, for want of a better word, ripping off. You know, it likes those films a lot, and I think that makes this. It's fun.
Yeah, it's a
It's
bit of
fun. It's really fun. Yeah. Well, John, I don't know about you, but I feel really good about us going now out into the community at large and, really, getting into the social structure and contacting all our close friends, family, co-workers, and sort of, getting back into society.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's get
Yes.
balls deep in society.
Let's go get that. No, I don't want to do that. No. But anyway, so
Where do you go from there, really?
I don't know if I want to be part of this invasion anymore. Sorry. Did I say invasion? I meant community outreach program. But before we do that, John, I think it's good that I've heard that us humans, of course, are very precious about our opinions.
Yes.
And what we think about things, and art, and how things made us feel. So I think we need to now sit and work out, well, which of these movies did we feel like was the best movie? Which one do you think is the best film?
Well, I think for me it has to be Invasion of the Body Snatchers, because it made me feel most like an individual.
Did it? Did it improve your self-worth and your feeling of this human thing we call feeling?
Yes.
Yeah. So really, you think Body Snatchers is the best one? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as much as I did enjoy The Faculty, and parts of it maybe, or not parts of it. Sorry, if you get me on the right day, I'd probably I'd prefer to watch The Faculty or whatever.
Yeah.
Something that you don't have to pay as much attention to, or something like that. But Invasion of the Body Snatchers does so much so well. We've already talked about the atmosphere, and we've talked about pretty much everything.
Yeah, I think we covered all the aspects pretty well.
The atmosphere and the characters, and my fucking age-old mantra of just, if you do the characters well, I'll watch whatever you want. And they do. I really enjoyed watching these people try to survive this inevitable. It's kind of they don't succeed, which is another kind of.
There's a certain point in that movie where you see that it's gotten to a point.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, there's no coming back from this now. That's everybody, isn't it? You know?
There's no hope. Once the Body Snatchers have kind of got all the emergency services and all these higher levels of government, you're kind of like, well, you're screwed. What do you do?
Yeah, that's the point, I think, where you're just like, whenever he picks up the phone and he's trying to contact the police, and he's trying to call out of town.
Don't be telling anyone about duplicates.
No, that's. But it's they keep interrupting his phone calls and being like, "I'll get you through now," and they keep using his name.
Yeah,
and there's like, "I didn't give you my name." Like, yeah, and you're just like, "Oh, right." Yeah, at that point, it almost feels like they're just inevitably doomed.
Yeah,
and they're just sort of going through the death throes.
Even the way that scene is shot is amazing. Where that's him running between the phone boxes in the street.
Yeah,
and it's like this odd kind of camera angle from quite low down, and you can see the crowd, and it feels kind of claustrophobic, even though he's outside. and he's running to these phone boxes, and I just love this this kind of panic, and this goes on for quite a while, but it's never boring to watch. It's really tense. It does
it's
a really
frenetic
good job
in this way that just holds your attention.
And like even when he does get through to some of the people, you know, if they don't use his name, they're telling him not to alert anyone, and that someone will be with him shortly.
Stay where you are, and we're sending someone over. Yeah,
and it's so creepy and so futile, you know. And that's quite early on that you get this futility. So the rest of it is almost you waiting for them to fall to their inevitable fate.
Yeah,
which they all do.
I think you're right. Now, as far as how well this paced. Now, I'm a little bit torn between this film and The Faculty, not XTRO. No, we didn't even. Again, we've done that thing again where we didn't even mention XTRO as a candidate. XTRO does have the high points or its positive things that I could say about XTRO, in that sometimes the special effects were interesting, and kind of cool, and conceptually, I think the thing I liked about XTRO was when we first saw the trailer for XTRO. And whenever I read the, I believe it's the IMDb, I think it's just the general sort of log line for the movie, which, if I may read it now, which is the reason that I wanted to watch this in the first place and thought it would be a good candidate for this.
The reason you wanted to watch this was because there's an actual body invasion going on right now and we need answers.
Yes, but aside from all that...
Oh, it just happened to coincide with
It just happened to coincide with me wanting to watch XTRO because, I mean, like, the log line for the movie is, an alien creature impregnates a woman who gives birth to a man that was abducted by aliens 3 years ago. The man reconnects with his wife and son for a sinister purpose. And I was like, that sounds perfect.
Yep.
That sounds like the perfect movie.
It's like it was made for me.
Yeah, sort of. You know, it's to the point where it's like the fact that it was an alien creature impregnates a woman who gives birth to a man that was abducted by aliens 3 years ago is an insane sentence for anyone to say. And then you see the movie and you're like, oh, that's why they wrote that sentence.
Yeah.
Because it kind of is the film.
That's the closest approximation you can get to a synopsis for that movie. Indeed,
yes. So I like the concept, I guess, of XTRO in a way, and some of the effects are cool to look at, and it's silly. And as you were saying before, the points where it gets boring, usually something interesting happens soon enough that it really does sort of hold your interest. Would you say that means it's well paced? I don't know if that necessarily is true.
It did feel a bit of a slog, and it didn't. It's weird. It didn't feel like that was the intention. Almost that, you know, we'll have this like drawn out scene, and then we'll relieve the. Well, there was no tension or anything like that for a start, so it wasn't like there was a release of tension. It's just you were kind of getting bored, and then something really bizarre, usually completely with no context, would happen, and then you're just interested because it's the spectacle has begun again. Yes,
because you're like, oh, here's a weird effect, and here's something very odd that is happening.
It's like, what the fuck is he doing now?
Now there's a panther in the hallway. I don't know.
Yeah, or like kind of you're almost sitting there going, this is all going to be explained at the end, right? Right?
You're almost excited at the concept of having someone illuminate you on, and then that doesn't really come. That never really happens.
Part of you is expecting by the end to be like, oh my god, that's fucking genius.
Kind of like One Cut of the Dead. Maybe you're expecting that sort of like, here's this whole thing from a different perspective, and now it makes sense.
Yeah.
But we never, ever, ever, ever get anything even vaguely approaching that. But I wouldn't say this film didn't annoy me or aggravate me. I kind of did enjoy XTRO. I can't say that I didn't like it. I can't also say that it's good film though. So
I mean, we have said many times before on this podcast that we enjoy watching these
Yeah.
bad they're good kind of movies.
It's schlocky, and it's the performances are almost universally garbage. Even the actual actress that's in the movie isn't necessarily great. I remember seeing someone else wrote in a review, and their whole review is basically Bernice Staggers was terribly miscast, and I was like, I guess she was, but was anyone cast well?
I don't think there is a possible way to cast this movie right.
I don't think so. I don't think there's a dream cast for XTRO that I could come up with. So I don't think it's very good. I like Invasion of the Body Snatchers for all the reasons that you have said. You're spot on. The tone, the way the tone shifts and changes is very natural. The way they handle, especially you were saying on a technical level, it's thoughtful on a technical level, in that the way they handle all the background sounds and the Foley sounds and how that changes throughout the movie is very clever. The practical effects are good. They're well shot so that they don't look daft, which is very important, especially in the 1970s when there's a lot of special effects pieces from the 1970s that look terrible. You'll be watching it, you'll be thinking this is pretty good, and then a monster will jump out, and it'll be obviously a man in a suit that's 3 times too big, who can't see and is flopping around the place. So that never happens in this movie, which is great.
I mean, if you pause the scene with the dog, you will see the seams in that.
That is the worst effect in the film.
It looks terrible, but because it's only there for a split second, it appears, she screams, it kind of works because you almost don't see it properly. And
it's slightly disturbing, but it did make me laugh a wee bit.
Yeah.
And then I felt bad because it sinks in a second or two later. You're like, that's actually disturbing.
Yeah.
And if I saw that thing, I would scream and wail the same way she did.
Yeah.
So that's completely justified. As far as the faculty goes, I think the thing I like about the faculty is, the faculty wouldn't exist without these other movies existing. Well, not XTRO, but it wouldn't exist without Invasion of the Body Snatchers and films of that ilk, let's say.
Yeah.
The faculty wouldn't exist, but I think the thing I like about the faculty is there's a lot of love in the faculty for the genre. I think that's what I like about the faculty, is that it is quite sweet.
Did you know actually that Elijah Wood's dad's name in that movie, his dad is actually called XTRO?
No, he's fucking not. Fuck off with that shit, you. Stop that. I was so ready to hear a fun fact there, and then you said XTRO, and I nearly walked out.
Who knows? It might be. I might check it now.
You never
I
know.
might add it on the IMDb if I can.
Aye. You go in there, put it in the Wikipedia article, see if you can get it past the moderators.
Mr. XTRO Reynolds, or
and then
whatever his last name might be.
Look, it's true. So I think it's this is a difficult one for me, because I do love that in this particular version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I think one of the reasons I love this version so much is that it's a film I stumbled across when I was younger, because it was on TV when I was maybe 11 or 12.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of those, everyone else has gone to bed and I'm up watching Channel 4 and this film starts, and I'm like, oh, I've heard of Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yeah.
I guess I'll sit here and watch this. Haha, isn't it fun being up this late? You know? And I remember being surprised, because whenever you see whenever I was around that age, the films you'd see during the day from the 70s and stuff are older films, when you think about you put things in a category in your head about all these World War II movies that you would get and stuff, and pip pip wah, and they're all a bit, and they didn't really hold my attention very much, especially at that time. I remember seeing the film grain of it and stuff, and immediately thinking one of those films.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of World War II movies in the 70s with Telly Savalas and people in them, weird things like that. And from the beginning, it grabbed my attention in a way that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing this film then and sitting up till like 1:30 in the morning, and then my mum coming into the living room and shouting at me for being up and being like, "Why are you still up? Go to bed." And me refusing to leave the room because I wanted to see the end of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And I didn't get to see the end of it until I was like, maybe it was years later.
Yeah.
I didn't see that ending.
And then
so I never knew how it
your mum
ended.
came in again and went,
Yeah, so I didn't know how this movie ended until, and like for me it was almost extra shocking because I had been waiting 4 years to see the conclusion.
wow,
And
that is some weight.
yeah.
That is,
I know.
that is
So-
Avengers Endgame levels of
Indeed.
weight.
Yeah, so this, I don't know whether it's like that I have that memory attachment to this, so I feel very strongly about this
Yeah.
film because of that.
Well, I don't know. Like, it's one that I definitely seen when I was probably in my teens and things. No, I didn't have that any of that like forbidden fruit type thing
Yeah.
attached to it, and I still enjoyed it. You know, even at that age, you know, that sounds so condescending, doesn't it? Even at that age, but I enjoyed it, and I think you can get a lot out of this movie depending on what you're, you know, or no matter what you're looking for. You know, if you're really wanting something that you can kind of delve into and look for like deeper meanings and look for all these analogies and political allegories, you know, they're all there. They're all right for the picking, whether they're intentional or not. You know, like they're definitely, because even at one point, Donald Sutherland's character says something about, you know, the body snatcher being like a Republican or something, that, you know, about them changing into Republicans. So like there's wee throwaway lines that you can read deeper meanings into, you know, and things like that. But or you can watch it as just like this kind of sci-fi thriller, and it still works. Well, obviously it works, but I love that when you can stick it on when you're in a few different moods, you know.
That's very true. I feel like I think this film is probably my favorite of these three.
Yeah.
I think The Faculty is actually weirdly a very close second.
Yeah, I was surprised when because I've only seen The Faculty really like when it came out, or roughly when it came out, I think.
Yeah.
It might have been on TV or something like that, you know, but it's not long after it came out, and I didn't, like, when rewatching it there, I didn't think it would be as good.
Aye.
And I am surprised that, like, I am sitting here going, it is a close second, you're right.
Yeah.
It's still...
I think especially because, like, watching Invasion of the Body Snatchers and then watching The Faculty, like, so soon after, it gives you this weird, it gave me almost this different perspective on The Faculty, because I had just watched the thing they were referencing and they were talking about, and it was almost like I was more into the film, because I was like, I've literally just looked at Invasion of the Body Snatchers with an analytical mind, because I was like, what am I learning from Invasion of the Body Snatchers? And then they were doing it.
So they essentially did our job for us.
They were doing it in the film, and I was like, and it works out for them.
Yeah.
So, John, that then brings us on to, so Invasion of Body Snatchers is my pick. So, does the fact that is Invasion of the Body Snatchers the best way to defeat us? I mean, the Body Snatchers. Or is the fact that The Faculty tells us to watch Invasion of the Body Snatchers?
No,
the
XTRO
best
is definitely the best
advice?
way to destroy us. Wink, wink.
Yes. In fact, I would go so far.
Body Snatchers.
I would almost go so far as to say that we should destroy every copy of these movies that we find.
Yep.
Just in case somebody gets the wrong idea. Yes, they're so inaccurate and bad and not good for advice.
Yeah. For
defeating these alien things that don't exist.
Yeah.
That I don't know what. I don't know. I've never seen an alien spacecraft. And I didn't come down in the rain?
No.
No?
Well, I will say this. I think,
yes,
in all seriousness, that The Faculty is probably the best way to or the most informative and dealing with because again it goes back onto our whole thing of the other two movies don't actually sort the problem. XTRO, well, who we're assuming is XTRO, fulfills his goal and gets away with the kid.
We don't know why that's his goal, but that doesn't matter. That was his goal, and he gets away with it. Yeah.
When you're XTRO, you don't need to explain yourself to other people.
Yeah.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers ends with it's a horrendous end.
I mean, it kind of teaches us what not to do in a way, in that Veronica Cartwright's character isn't cautious enough, maybe.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you got to wonder about, how long someone could last and what hope they would ultimately have, even if that ending doesn't happen.
It all, if you fall asleep once and these tendrils get on you, that's it. As soon as you fall asleep again, you're screwed.
I mean, your only choice would be, let's go out and live in the middle of somewhere where no vegetation can survive.
Yeah.
But that's not going to stop them coming out to get you.
Exactly.
And
I mean, eventually everyone else gets taken over, so then you just have a crowd of people surrounding you and you can't escape.
True.
So yeah, the faculty is the only one that really gets rid of the problem.
Indeed.
Supposedly.
And also is here, look at these sources and try to work out. And Invasion of the Body Snatchers does teach us, observing people's behaviour and changes in behaviour, but then the faculty also teaches us that sometimes people do things that are out of character.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't necessarily jump the gun, but what you should do is get a pen full of cocaine and stab it into somebody's eyeball.
And just while you're saying that, I was pretending the whole time.
Ah! Well, as I slowly dissolve into putty on the floor, if only I'd watched some film to teach me about human behaviour. But anyway, I guess that's all. I have very little time left. So, we are on Twitter. We are at 7-Day Apocalypse. That's at numeral 7-Day Apocalypse. If you want to contact John, I guess now, by email, you can send
you'll
us
get better. I've got an eye patch here for you.
Oh, cool. Right, well, I've got an eye patch and something to bandage my hand up. You can email us filmcast at thisweeksapocalypse.com. That's filmcast at thisweeksapocalypse.com. Well done, John, for spotting the alien menace among us.
I owe it all to the faculty.
Yes.
Maybe.
Thank you, John Stewart, again, for showing us the way.
Yeah, just thank you, John Stewart. Not even with about this. Just thanks John
just
Stewart.
in general. You know what? Here, John, I miss you. Yeah. And you, John, as well. This John as well. I miss Pod John.
Pod John.
Yeah. So, and with that,